Like to call our meeting to order August 22nd, 2022. Pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Laws of 1975, this meeting has been duly advertised in the South Jersey Times and the Sentinel. The municipal clerk of the township has been duly notified, and the requirements of posting notices have been met. If you would please stand for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge of allegiance.
The flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Treasurer, call roll, please.
Bellis? Here. Selling? Here. Cunningham? Doherty? Here. Doyle? Here. Rosso? Here. Dean?
Here.
Trace? Here. Grant?
Here.
Warren.
Thank you. Before we get into our meeting this evening, I just wanted to introduce Mr. Jeff Kachady to the board members of the public. Jeff's here with us as our new solicitor since Mr. Borelli had retired. Although he's new in this position, he's worked with the board in other capacities for at least 6 years, if not more. So Jeff will be here from this point moving forward to provide our legal counsel. With that, I'd like to move into our first presentation this evening. We have our student performance report. Mrs. Dole. Good. Get the lights.
Good. He's getting there. All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome. We're quite proud tonight. I'm going to sit through my end of year student data presentation, and then I'm going to go into the health and phys ed standards and the updated curriculum that you'll be seeing tonight as well. So thank you for having me tonight. Almost time for the start of the school year, so getting back into that groove. But taking a look at our end of the year data from the 21-22 school year, we will be taking a look at our DIBELS data, our iReady reading, iReady math, and the math interview / math reasoning inventory that's given to the students 3 times a year. First, we're going to take a look at DIBELS. And anytime that you're looking at these graphs, I always say we want the red to decrease and the green to increase. So I'm giving you just the composite score, the overall scores of the percentage of students that fell into each of the categories of red is needing intensive support, orange is strategic support, yellow is core support, and the brighter green is core support. It's like an even higher level. So anything in the yellow and green is really good for DIBELS. So if you're looking at kindergarten in September through June, you can see how the red decreases, the orange decreases. And taking a look at that, all of the subtests of DIBELS increased for the kids except for our phonemic segmentation fluency subtest. So still at the end of the year, there was a high percentage of kids that are intensive in kindergarten in that one subtest for DIBELS. So we will make sure that the first grade teachers are aware of that, and we will see where they are when they come into first grade and they're given that assessment as a first grader as well. In first grade, all of the subtests increased for all of the kids throughout the school year. So that's exactly what we want to see is the percentage of kids that are performing on or above level increase throughout the school year. Same thing in second grade. The only subtest that did not increase in second grade is the maze, and the maze assesses comprehension. So this is the first grade level in which this assessment assesses comprehension, and it makes sense because I've been telling you guys we did such a focus on phonics and phonemic awareness that we knew that we would see an increase in all of our phonics and phonemic awareness and start to see where that comprehension would come into play. So we've been talking about swinging that pendulum back over to bringing in comprehension and vocabulary. Looking at 3rd through 6th grade. In 3rd grade, our reading accuracy went through the roof. 81% or 87% of the kids are reading on or above level for fluency, exactly where they're supposed to be. The maze and nonsense words were our lowest areas, percentage of kids that are in that intensive category. For 4th grade, 5th grade, and 6th grade, maze, which is the one that assesses comprehension, was the one that was the lowest, which we will we have already have plans into place to stress that, just like we did with phonics and phonemic awareness, so that was an issue as well. So across the board, they all did well, did better except for third grade overall. I do want to mention, and I have it back here, looking from December to January, we had 49 kids transfer into the district. So there's 49 students for the end of year data that weren't even in the beginning of year data. And there's 38 students that transferred out of the district just between December and June. So, and we had a big staff turnover this past year as well. So when we're looking at some of the reasons why some of our data might not have gone the way that we wanted it to go, there's a lot of factors we have to take into consideration as well. So for iReady reading, you will see that there was a big increase from the fall to the spring. It's really hard to see. The fall one is in a lighter color. The fall one is the bottom row or the bottom bar, if you will. Our percentage of students on or above level for reading, according to iReady, was 26% at the beginning of the year, and we went up to 56% by the end of the year. For the students in yellow, and that's your 1 grade level below, we went from 46% of the population being there to 29% of the population being 1 grade level below. And in red, which was 2 or more grade levels below, we went from 27% to 15%. So we definitely saw some really good gains in iReady for reading instruction. Here's the breakdown by each of the subtests by the domains that is tested in iReady. Phonological awareness, phonemic awareness, high frequency words, they are our highest by far, and that has been where we've been stressing most of our time with the students. Vocabulary comprehension, both literature and informational text, that's where we're moving towards. So just as Dibble said, there's a bit of an issue with comprehension, it's right there in iReady as well. For iReady math, for iReady math, for the student population, in the fall, only 15% of our students in the district were on or above grade level. At the end of the year, 58% of the students were on or above grade level in math. For students that were 1 grade level below, 58% of the district was 1 grade level below, and at the end of the year, it was 33% of the district. 2 or more grade levels below went from 27% to 9%. So, was very happy to see those gains in math. These are the domains. Most of the red you're going to see, most of the red is that 2 or more grade levels below is in algebra and geometry. We saw a lot of gains, however, in geometry. So there was a lot more kids intensive in the fall than there was in the spring, but it's still an area of focus. And geometry is one of the subtests that was not considered a priority standard during COVID. So we're still seeing the effects of when we had to prioritize the standard and and then, however, most of the gains in green with the students being on or above level, that was in numbers and operations, in algebra and algebraic thinking. In moving on to the math interview and the math reasoning inventory. So remember, the math interview and the math reasoning inventory are given to students one-on-one. The math interview is given to students in kindergarten through 3rd grade, and then in 4th grade, we transition over to the math reasoning inventory. The math reasoning inventory is higher order. They're applying all of their number sense strategies to decimals and fractions, and so it's not just a straightforward computation. And both of these assessments assess whether the students are using the most efficient and effective mental math strategies. So this is kindergarten. You'll see a composite score for the end of the year because there are 4 subtests to this assessment, but we don't test them until December, and we only test them using 2 subtests in December. So we look at 1, 2, more and less, and we look at spatial reasoning. For this one, the middle of the year is on the right, and the end of the year is on the left, so it's a little backwards when you're looking at the green. At the end of the year, we test all 4 subtests. So the reason that I put only the 2 subtests up here is because we have some data to show how they performed in the middle of the year and how they performed at the end of the year. And then the composite score we only had at the end of the year. In first grade, we gave the math interview with whole numbers to the students 3 times a year. There was a little bump in the number of students that were read being that intensive in the middle of the year, but as you can see at the end of the year, we didn't have any students in the intensive range in any of the subtests. For the math, I will say that our biggest issue at the beginning of the year was the 1, 2, more and less subtest, and at the end of the year, it was part whole. And we've already put things into place in the curriculum to try to strengthen that area of concern. In second grade, you'll see middle of the year versus end of the year. Because at the beginning of the year, we give the math interview whole numbers interview to the students because they are expected at that point to have mastered that skill with whole numbers. And they start bringing in more of the multi-digit numbers. So in December, they get the multi-digit number interview. And at the end of the year, they get the multi-digit number interview. So that's why you only see middle of the year and end of the year here to compare. At the middle of the year, the spatial reasoning was the biggest challenge, and then came the 1, 2, more and less. At the end of the year, it completely switched, and it was benchmarks of 5 and 10, and part whole. And the 1, 2, more and less actually became the strength for the students by the end of the year. Same thing in third grade. You'll see the math interview for multiplication. So we have whole numbers, a multi-digit number, and then multiplication. At the fall, in third grade, we give the multi-digit math interview because they're expected to have mastered that at the end of second grade. Then in third grade, we're teaching them multiplication and division. So in December, we start with the multiplication. You can see there is a slight decrease of the number of students that are on level and an increase to the number of students that are read from the middle of the year to the end of the year. This is kind of where I took a look at the number of kids that have transferred in and out of the district, because if you remember, last year and the year before, I had told you that we had uncovered historically that by the end of fourth grade, only 50% of our population had been with us since kindergarten. So I keep trying to take a look at the data in terms of how long have the kids been with us. How many of them, why are there some differences beyond just looking, what are some other reasons why that red went up and that green went down. So also looking at for multiplication, it was 1, 2, more and less with the subtest. That was the issue at the middle of the year, and at the end of the year, it was the part whole, which makes sense because that's where they struggle with the multi-digit numbers, and now you're seeing it again with multiplication. In fourth grade, we gave them the math reasoning inventory in December, and you can see that there was a lot of growth made with them by the end of the year. This is now where they're applying all of those skills that they have learned to a different context. And so it's getting a little bit difficult because now they've had all the standards that they are supposed to have mastered in terms of the 4 operations, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. Now we're seeing if they can apply those to bigger numbers in the different situations. For fifth grade, you'll see that the yellow, when I wrote this out, now they're doing the math reasoning inventory, but they're doing it with numbers that are fractions and decimals. So we've moved on to whole numbers, and we've now moved up to how do they apply these strategies when they're doing math with fractions and decimals. And there was some great gains across the board in fifth grade. And in breaking this down, the application of the 4 operations, the same percentage of kids kind of did both, so it's separated into addition and subtraction and multiplication and division. And they had more of an issue with the multiplication and division than they did with addition and subtraction, which makes sense because they've been doing the addition and subtraction much longer than they have been with multiplication and division. The 6th grade, they grew a ton. The 6th grade grew a ton from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. Beginning of the year, we had 63% of the kids that were intensive using these strategies with fractions and decimals, and by the end of the year, we were at 16% of the students. They did come out that they are stronger with decimals than they are with fractions by just a little bit for that grade. So that is it for the data part of the end of year student data and how students performed from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. The next thing I wanted to talk about was our district goals. So we had a multi-year goal for iReady. If you remember, and I'll pull the goal back up, but we tiered the students based on how they performed in iReady for both reading and math. And we wanted to see the students in each tier make a certain amount of progress for their stretch goal, or their stretch growth goal, excuse me. This I wanted to show you is the reading progress. This is the typical growth that our students make. And I took it back to 1890. So pre-pandemic, 63% of our students met their typical growth in the district. Coming back from the pandemic, only 45% of our kids had met their typical growth. And we talked at this table a lot about the students that are below grade level and what is it going to take to move them forward into making sure that they're able to hit their growth goals and eventually get them back on grade level. We didn't think it was going to happen, but if you take a look for 21-22, we're moving in the right direction. We're back up to 61% of the kids this year meeting their typical growth. So pre-pandemic, we were at 63%. Now we're at 61%. For the stretch growth, prior to the pandemic, we had about 34% of our student population meeting their stretch growth. During the pandemic, that went down to 20%. 20% of them were meeting their stretch growth, 22% of them. Now we're up to 30% of them meeting their stretch growth. So we're moving in the right direction in terms of the percentage of kids that will meet their stretch growth. This is for reading. This is for math. So pre-pandemic, 60% of our kids met their typical growth. Now we're back up, we're at 61% of the kids meeting their typical growth. During the pandemic, we went all the way down to 36% of the kids meeting their typical growth. So we've definitely made more gains than we had expected to make this year. The same thing for their stretch growth. We are not quite where we were pre-pandemic. We were at 35%. This year, we were only at 28%. But we're moving in the right direction because through the pandemic, we were at 17%. So we bounced back from 17% of the population meeting their stretch growth to 28% of the population meeting their stretch growth. This was the goal that we had set forth. 70% of the student population would meet their stretch growth goals based on their tier. So the tiers, I will read that on here. For reading, we had the baseline data from 2021. This was the goal for 21-22, and then we had a goal for 22-23 and 23-24. We've adjusted the goals for 22-23, which I'll get to in a minute, because here is where we wanted the students to be, and here is where they actually fell. So in tier one, we wanted 34% of the students and 40% of them in the stretch growth. So we are already past what the goal was for next year for tier one. For tier two, we wanted 27.5% to meet their stretch growth, and we had 32%. We've already almost met the goal for next school year. That was at 32.5%. For tier three students, 22% to meet their stretch growth. We had 24% of them meet their stretch growth. And this is math over here. So in tier one, 25% was the goal. We hit 27%. 22% was the goal for the tier two students. We hit 30%. We passed the goal for next year with the tier two students. For tier three, we had 20% of them meeting. We wanted 20% of them to meet, and 23% of them. Now the goal itself was 70% of the population, but when you break down how many students actually met the goal in both reading and math, we were overall at a 62.5% of the student population met their stretch growth goal in both reading and math. So to adjust the goal, what we did, and we're asking the board to approve these goals tonight. So please, if you have any questions, make sure you ask me and I can clarify anything. I set up this chart so you can see, here was the goals, reading on the top, math on the bottom. Here's what we actually did. And then we went ahead for the 22 and 23 school year and we upped what percentage of kids we wanted to meet each of those goals for the years. So just to give you an idea, and I kind of did it quickly, I had told you in Tier 1 for reading, we had already met the goal that we set forth for the school year. So we moved what was 44% that we were going to put as our 23-24 goal, we moved that up to the 22-23. And then for Tier 2 for reading, we moved that up to 36% because we actually hit 32%. So we added a 4% increase. For Tier 3, we also added a 4% increase and went from, since we hit 24%, we increased that to 28%. In math, we felt comfortable because only 27% met and we had 25% was the goal. We kept the goal the same at 35%. So we're still expecting a jump from 27% to 35%. For Tier 2, we shifted the 34%. That was the 23-24 target. So we shifted that back over to the 22-23 and moved it up here. And then with the 27% for the Tier 3, we added a 4% increase to that as well. We decided that it was in the best interest to do it to be determined for the goals for the 23-24 school year to get a second year of data under our belt to see exactly did we sustain what we did this year with the stretch growth goal. So that is why the to be determined for 23-24 is there. Last thing, I wanted to give you an update. Last year, we provided this to you to show you the activities that we were doing to support our district goals and to support our student achievement using the ESSER funds that we were provided by the federal government. So I just wanted to give you a quick update that all the ones that have the green check mark by them are pretty much done or close to being done. Everything that doesn't have a check mark next to it is just ongoing. So things that we've completed, we finished the New Jersey Tiered System of Support Early Reading Grant. The second one, the data-driven instructional model, that starts this school year, and that's with Rutgers University. We formalized the math tiered system of support. We increased the number of full-time basic skills positions in the district. Every student in K through 2 has a Chromebook. We have changed the gifted and talented, the way it's identified. We now identify students by math and language arts. And differentiation in the classroom and curriculum is still ongoing. All of those differentiation things are still being added into the curriculum. STEAM integration in computer literacy classes, that is already happening. It's just not complete. We've already moved robotics in and coding in and Lego sets and all of these other things, but it's not to where I want it yet. So it's almost there. Special education support. I don't think you can ever put a check mark next to supporting teachers or especially our special education students or any students that are below level. But we have an instructional, we increased our instructional coaches to have a special ed coach. We've increased the resources that we are able to provide to the special ed students, and we've increased the type of professional development that has been given. Increased articulation with Delcy and Elle. I've said it since they have gotten their new assistant superintendent at Delcy, and him and I have had many meetings this school year. And I am very hopeful for the future for the articulation between the 3 districts with curriculum, with professional development, and making sure that we know exactly what our students need going into 7th grade, and they know exactly where they're coming from coming into 6th grade. Our contracted services, we contracted with First Children's Services. We started with them last summer for summer school. We kept them throughout the school year. They came back this summer and they will be back this school year as well. Same thing with the behavioral services. We contracted with Denovi, and she was here, our rep was here. I don't want to call her a rep, or what do I call her? Thank you. Like a behavior specialist. She was with us all last year, and she will be with us again this year. The professional development obviously is ongoing. They are providing professional development to our staff and to our paraprofessionals in the first 2 days of school. Social and emotional learning, we've put in a district social and emotional learning committee. We've increased the number of members that are on that committee. We have been able to enhance the morning meeting goals and have that continue through. They're continuing to develop the capacity for effective emotional well-beings with our staff and our students. We have health and wellness challenges that are put forth by the committee, providing professional development, fostering positive collegial relationships through the social events, and obviously they are the committee that is taking the lead on the social and emotional learning goals in our strategic plan. So that is all I have for you for that. Do you have any questions? I know it's a lot. I know, Jonathan, what's up?
So most of my questions are just around the data, and I'm not asking for more data, I just want clarification on like your processes and what your capabilities are. So you did mention that we have a lot of student turnover in and out. Are you guys able to bifurcate the population to be able to see how long students have been with us, and are you able to see that?
So that's in the strategic plan as one of our goals. We're currently working with Real-Time and Lincoln to see if there's a connection, a nightly transfer component that we can do with attendance. Last year, they weren't able to do it with Real-Time. I talked to our Lincoln rep last week, and starting this fall, they are able to also bring attendance over in the nightly transfer. So we're going to be working with them, because right now, yes, I can do it. It's just a lot more work. And then what I wanted to do in looking at the strategic plan, one of the goals is to look at that monthly by grade level and say, okay, here it's the end of September. How many kids came in? How many kids left per grade level? And trying to track the data that way. So that way when we pool the academic data, we can also start pulling those data points as well.
That's going to be very helpful.
Yes.
And then for the aggregated population, do you do monitoring of the disaggregated? Like if you have kids that are going, do you see if there's kids that started above and they end up below?
Yes.
Okay.
We do that in our data reviews.
Okay.
And we do that with it. So remember I told you after each component, we sit down and look at every student's data, every subtest, and we see where they went up, where they went down. Do they need support? What's going on? Sometimes it's a bad day. Sometimes it's they didn't do well with the new instruction that they were given. And then we're supporting.
But we do have
Yes.
support, you identify that. Okay, good.
Yep.
And then last question, I saw like the projection. Were there specific inputs around the projection, or like what was your reasoning for upping that projection to the specific points?
Well, Mr. Walton and I had taken a look at it and we were like, wow, this was where we were supposed to be in 23, 24. So let's just move that, up a year and see if we can hit it based off of that. And the ones where we didn't hit it, we tried to split the difference. So it was like, well, we went up this much percent, we need this much more to go to make where we wanted to be. So that's where we kind of got increasing it by the 4%.
Okay, so we're getting back on track.
Yes.
Okay,
Or if not above.
good.
That's my hope, because where we were pre-pandemic still isn't good.
Right. That's all my questions. This is great. Love it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a few questions.
Let's just go with
You both went at this, you both went at the same time.
Go or Mr. Dory.
Okay, thank you. You mentioned that there's differentiation ongoing in the classroom's instruction.
Yes.
Is there any differentiation happening during testing?
Yes, if a student has an IEP or a 504 plan, then those
Oh, like
are.
if they have a 504 or something like that?
It depends on what the assessment is. So if we're doing state assessment, we can only do it based off of what is in their plan. When we're doing the math interviews and the DIPLs, that's all one-on-one with the teacher.
iReady is all computerized, correct?
iReady is all computerized.
So
Yes.
there's no differentiation there.
No, but there's no time limit either.
Okay, next question. What's the percentage of students who don't need any help when you were doing the green, the yellow, the
The
red?
ones in the green, typically, but we pull them apart by subtest and look at the subtest because there are subtest markers that give you, identify that this could possibly lead to a future problem. If they're low here, keep an eye on them because they could possibly have a problem in the future. So we break it down beyond the overall score into the subtest, and then there's certain subtests that we look at more closely.
Are there any students testing above grade level in any of these?
Yeah.
Okay, and
Yeah.
where do they get challenged? What are they doing?
In the curriculum for math and language arts, we're adding that in because Gifted and Talented used to be a pull-out program. And now we are doing it by math and language arts. So in the curriculum, we are starting to put in what would be those more challenging activities.
Okay, last question. Early in the presentation, you mentioned that phonics was one of the low scoring subtests,
Historically,
but not now?
yes.
Oh, okay. Okay, I wondered if that had to do with the several different kinds of phonics programs we have.
No, we've seen an increase because of putting in what we have put in the past couple of years.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Taylor?
Yeah, so my question, I didn't love how this seemed kind of interchangeable and how it was really strict to like what the goal is. It says 70% of students meeting stretch goals. Is that to be combined or separated? I'd like it to be kind of a little bit more, not changing, a little bit more.
We're right there with you.
Okay.
Because what I wanted to do is I wanted to change the goals and be it just by tier. Because when you look at iReady, it gives you, this is how many growth points each tier. Like if you're in tier 1, you need to grow this many points. If you're in tier 2, you need to grow this many points. But all the conversation that we had last year in trying to put this goal together, we kept coming back and forth. We decided on the 70% of all of the students. Now, I'm not gonna lie, it was a little more difficult to track it and to really look like, I have a slide that has every individual grade level and which tiers in each grade level hit it and which ones did it and why. Like, if we broke it down in math, we hit the 70%.
Exactly.
But in language arts, it was only 55%.
Exactly. So it's not, I would just like to see it a little more standardized, like, whether it's been combined or separated. There's just no right way. So like if it's 70% for both combined, and students meeting both of them, that'd be great. That's better than them, separated. But
Right. We had the same conversations, and then presenting it to you tonight, we decided, because this is what we decided on last year, and we didn't want to change the goal completely, but we wanted to make sure that it's clearer as to what we're looking at. So the way that we got the 62.5% was taking that 55% that hit the language arts and the 70% that hit math and averaging them together. You're welcome. Anybody else?
My only question, Jamie, is how is our data compared to other local districts and statewide? Are we trending?
I can do that with the state scores. I have the preliminary data for the state scores. I don't have, I should have the data that they say is the good data by next week in order to take a look and compare it to the state. What I can do with iReady is compare it nationally. And I didn't do that for you. So I mean, it's something that we do look at, but I didn't do it for this. But when we look at it, we are typically right where everybody else is too in the nation that uses iReady.
So we're not experiencing any anomalies that you're aware of. We're right there with the rest of it.
Yeah, not with iReady
Okay.
and not with Dimples, yep.
Yes.
So for Dickens Homes at last year, there is nothing, there's just a letter sent home, what's going to be the position?
No, there just wasn't explicit activities in the curriculum. That was something that we were working on doing. So this year you'll see a little bit more. It's not done, it'll be ongoing. But we had more conversations with teachers, with the coaches working with the teachers that had those students in their classroom and what they could do with that. Now we're getting into the curriculum, so it's right there explicitly. Anything else?
No, any further questions? Don't go anywhere with that.
I know, I'm not going.
Yeah, the health and physical education.
I'm just gonna take a drink.
Yeah.
It's water.
Yeah, take a breather. And while you're getting that set up, Jamie, the student performance data will be available on the website, if anyone cares to review that in the future. There's a lot of information to take in once it.
Yep. So this might be a little bit hard to read. It was attached to the board agenda for the board members over the weekend. Also was attached was the curriculum documents, every unit for every grade level. I do want to point out to you that we've already made some slight revisions to the curriculum that was attached. Can you find it? Sorry. It's okay. We already made some slight revisions to the curriculum documents today. So we took all the ones off that were on your agenda over the weekend and we uploaded all of the revised ones this morning. A couple things that I want to point out, and I want to make sure that the parents that are in attendance tonight and the teachers that are in attendance tonight also are aware that the instruction of how we've instructed our students is not changing. So you will see vocabulary and you will see terms that are in the standards. However, we will be focusing on the core idea of the standards. So I added on here, we've never done this before. This table, this saying or this directive to the PE and health teachers and any future PE and health teachers that come to the district or any new curriculum directors that come in. The instructional guidance for the PE and health standards is that the instructional focus will be based on the core idea and not the performance expectations. In order to be compliant with state curricular guidelines, the standards are present within the curriculum documents. So the standards are present, as I explained to you before, because if they're not present, we will not be compliant with state guidelines. When the state comes in and we are CUSAC, if they are not in there, we will fail. So that is why you will see the performance expectations in the curriculum documents. However, this statement is at the beginning, and we have added the core ideas into the curriculum documents to make sure that the objectives focus around the core idea. So these were the standards that the board gave to me that you said you were concerned about and wanted to know how these standards were going to be taught and how they were going to be addressed in the curriculum. So for kindergarten through second grade, the core idea is personal growth and development, personal hygiene and self-help skills promote health habits. That's the core idea. The performance expectation is list medically accurate names for body parts, including genitals. We've always done medically accurate body parts. Genitals is what's new in the standard. That was in the 8th grade standard that they have now moved in. We will be focusing on the personal hygiene and self-help skills. We will be focusing on the body parts that are heads, shoulders, knees, and toes, elbows, what are the bones, what are the muscles. That's what we'll be focusing on in K-2. When we're talking about personal hygiene and self-help skills, we're talking about brushing their teeth, taking a bath. That's not changed. That's things that we've always talked about. That is not changing in the curriculum. What is changing is that you'll see that performance expectation is listed, but you'll also see that that core idea is the focus of instruction. Kindergarten, first grade, and in second grade, you'll see it in Unit 2 of the Wellness Unit in the actual health and PE curriculum documents. For pregnancy and parenting, by the end of second grade, the core idea is all living things have the capacity to reproduce. The performance expectation is to define reproduction. In our language arts curriculum, the very first unit is reproduction of plants and animals. That's what we're sticking with. It is the Unit 1 of Benchmark Workshop. That is where it'll be in the curriculum. All living things have the capacity to reproduce. It's talking about plants and animals have needs. In kindergarten, in Unit 1 in first grade, it's plants and animals grow and change. In second grade, it's habitats around the world and what do they need to be able to live. You'll also see that I put here that the core idea will be reinforced through our character ed lessons and discussions during morning leave. So when we're talking about families and having siblings and grandparents and what does that look like, and that is what we are looking at as the capacity for reproduction and looking at offspring. K-2, social and sexual health. The core idea is every individual has unique skills and qualities, which can include the activities they enjoy, such as how they may dress, their mannerisms, and things they like to do. The performance expectation is to discuss the range of ways people express their gender and how gender role stereotypes may limit behavior. Our focus is during the ELA curriculum in benchmark workshop in grades K through 2. So in Unit 3 of kindergarten, we talk about roles that are at home and are at school. We talk about holidays and celebrations. And in Unit 9, we're talking about meeting our needs and wants. What's the difference between a need? What's the difference between a want with our students? It's nothing new in our classrooms for us to talk to the students about their unique skills and qualities. Everybody has a unique skill or quality about them. You may be better at sports. You may be an artist. You may be a singer. You may be a musician. These are the things that we are talking about in reinforcement during this time. For personal safety, anytime children feel uncomfortable or in an unsafe situation, they should reach out to a trusted adult. This is not a new standard. However, the performance expectation says identify behaviors that would be considered child abuse. And then in parentheses, it says emotional, physical, and sexual. Those are examples. Those are not the terms that have to be used. Those are not the vocabulary that has to be used. We've taken them out. So I talked to the county office this morning to make sure that by me taking that out, and I'm only talking about the words that are in the parentheses. So where it says emotional, physical, and sexual, it's hard to see up there, but there's a strike through. If I took out those words in the parentheses, will we still be compliant? Put back a little out there. If we take the words out of the parentheses, will we still be compliant with the standards listed in the curriculum? And the answer was yes. Because looking through the documents, a lot of the vocabulary and words that are in the parentheses, I think is where we're seeing a lot of the angst and are we using these words? Are we actually, this is what we're going to be teaching our students? So we will be taking those out. We will be focusing on when children feel uncomfortable or in an unsafe situation. We're talking about the community. We're talking about the rules at home. It goes back to what we do in life clubs. Being a good community member, who are government officials, how is it set up, all of that will be how we address the personal safety concern with the students in those areas. That's K to 2. From 3 to 5, you were concerned with puberty is a time of physical, social, and emotional changes. That's the core idea. The performance expectations explain how human sexual development and the role of hormones. In parentheses, romantic and sexual feelings, masturbation, mood swings, timing of when is that puberty onset for students. And this I've heard a lot from parents, like you're teaching our kids how to masturbate. No, we're not. It's in there as an example of what you could do. It's not what you have to do. That's been taken out. So those words have been taken out. So in the curriculum documents that you have on your screens now, you can see that the words in the parentheses are not there for these standards. What is there is explain human sexual development and the role of hormones. That's discussed in the family life units. So the family life units are not changing. We are doing what we have done in family life for the last 10, 12 years. The parents will know when family life is being taught. The boys go with the gym teachers, the girls go with the nurse. It's taught in 4th grade, 5th grade, and 6th grade. Parents are made aware before it's taught, and they can opt their student out of sitting in for the family life instruction. We've had parents ask, can they see the pamphlet? Can they see the slideshow? Can they see the video? Yes, you absolutely can. You can look at that and then decide whether you want to opt your student out or if you want them to have the family life. So what you'll see that has changed is the performance expectation is listed, but what we've always done in family life is not changed. Same thing for pregnancy, can be achieved through a variety of methods. explain the relationship between sexual intercourse and human reproduction. In family life in 5th grade, they talk about pregnancy. It's mentioned. They don't go into the specifics of it. That is done in 7th and 8th grade and in high school with Delcy. We met with Delcy to make sure that by the end of 8th grade standards, what was going to be taught in 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade. We're not changing anything that we were doing. For the core idea of all individuals should feel welcome and included, regardless of their gender, gender expression, or sexual orientation. Our belief is all individuals should be welcome and included regardless of anything. So I underlined all individuals should feel welcome and included regardless, because that's what we talk about, is acceptance and kindness and respect. And what does that look like? That's what we're focusing on in our morning meeting discussions. I also listed here for you, because I said in the document that these would be covered during morning meeting with our character ed lessons. So every month our schools have character traits that they focus on. So these are the character traits. January and May have the same exact character traits every month. Ritters are a little bit different. So you can see possibly when we're talking about everyone should feel included and welcome, that can be in many of these character traits. When we're talking about respect, self-esteem, kindness, responsibility, honesty, citizenship. That is what I have for you. That is what you'll see in the documents that are in front of you. Is there any questions or clarifications that I can?
Well, first off, I just want to say thank you for putting this spreadsheet together, answer, the concerns that we previously expressed. It puts them in a, easier to understand format. And I haven't had an opportunity to review the revised unit programs that you sent over, but assuming that, I'm not questioning that you removed that language that you said you have. So with that, I'll leave it up to board member questions. I'm sure everyone has them. I'm going to start with Alicia.
I have one. You had mentioned that parents have the right to opt out any family lesson 3rd or 5th grade.
4th or 6th.
4th, okay.
Family life, sorry.
Do they have the option to opt out of any lesson K to 6 for help for this help and phys ed? Is there something else in there? Do they have that option?
Well, if you could give me an example, because with the generalness of them, I'm not sure, like if somebody wants to see what they're gonna do in language arts in those units, I'm more than happy to sit down with the parent and show them what their child's resource looks like.
I know the kindergarten standards was a little bit controversial about the body parts. I know you we don't do that when your head, shoulder, knees, toes, but still, if a parent didn't feel comfortable for whatever reason, didn't believe that was going to happen, or for whatever reason, could they?
How do I tell a teacher that a child can't learn about their body parts when it's head, shoulders, knees, and toes, and we sit crisscross applesauce and peanut butter jelly hands and
I think,
there's no specific lesson
yeah, even though
with that.
these are health and PE standards, some of these standards are being taught in areas outside of health and PE.
Correct.
Which would be ELA. So it would be impossible for someone to opt out of ELA. Theoretically, is that what you're saying?
I think it would be more of a we would have to sit down and have a conversation.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know if anyone
we
would
can
want to
show
opt out of ELA.
We can show that none of our resources have any of the genital terms in there, if that's what they're concerned about. I can tell you they don't, but if there's a parent that is concerned, I can sit down and show them
Maybe
the
they need to
resources.
see it. That's what I'm saying. They may need to see it or right.
Right.
Any other questions?
That was all mine.
All right, is that?
Leah.
Can you explain the sexual health where it says discuss the range of ways people express their gender and non-gender roles, stereotypes, within behavior?
Which one am I looking at?
2.2.
So that's the performance expectation. We're focusing focusing on the core idea right here. Every individual has unique skills and qualities which can include activities they enjoy, such as how they dress, their mannerisms, things they like to do. That's what we are focusing on. So discussing the range of ways people express their gender and how gender roles, stereotypes may limit behavior. Sometimes when they talk about families, we talk about what is mom's role, what is dad's role, what does that look like? Historically, that has changed. I mean, when we were little, mom stayed home from work. Mom stayed home and dad's worked. So looking at roles that way, and the roles of their family, and looking at siblings with brothers and sisters.
I have a question. How is, it seems quite a bit of this is incorporated into ELA.
Mm-hmm.
So how is that accomplishing the ELA goals in addition to this curriculum?
Because we're already teaching those units. So it's embedded in those units. We're always looking for cross-curricular interdisciplinary.
Which is good in most cases. Yeah, but we're not concentrating on the reading skills as much as,
Oh, we absolutely are, but this is within the content of what they're reading.
okay.
So when they're learning, I mean, you'll see in September, you have a brand new ELA curriculum coming to you. It's the comprehensive ELA and social studies curriculum. All of the social studies standards have now been embedded into the language arts curriculum, content and skills. And we worked with the county office very closely
Okay.
in regards to that. Okay?
I have a question. You had said in 5th grade, pregnancy and parenting. We discussed pregnancy, but this mentioned sexual intercourse. You're saying that that's not discussed?
If you look at the family life unit, if you go to the curriculum tab with the guidance documents and go to grade 5 family life, you'll see exactly what's taught there. And there's the resources, and we can give the parent, Mr. Burlingame uses a certain pamphlet, and there's a video that we can make available to the parents so they can see exactly what that looks like. But it's the same that we've always done. We're not changing anything.
Any other questions?
That question. So our ELA books from last year are going to change for this year?
Not the books, the curriculum. So the books are the resource, the curriculum is the document that the teachers follow, where we embed the standards.
Are we going to be able to see all that?
Yep, they'll be up for approval for September. They're not, you can't see them yet. We're finishing them. Prior to the September board meeting, they will be on the website. We'll let you know once they're up there. And this was rushed for this meeting tonight. But typically all of our curriculum, you guys approve in September.
Question, Jamie, is the ELA curriculum being changed in order to meet these standards? Or
No.
it's the opposite, right? You're looking at what we've already historically used and said, oh, we've met this standard.
Right. When these standards
What is
came out, I'm like, oh, we teach this in other areas. So
Right. So we're not changing ELA to match this.
No.
It's the opposite.
We were changing ELA to embed social studies into those
Right.
standards, and we make revisions to ELA and math every year.
Okay. And then these standards have been out since 2020, correct? These health and PE standards?
Yes,
Is
and with
that-
COVID, it kept getting pushed back as to when.
Right, they're the same standards, correct?
Yes.
And we've talked about these standards, and we've anticipated this meeting tonight for several years and had multiple conversations about it. And every time that the topic came up, we were always reassured by the administration that nothing in the way that we teach is going to change. That the way that we teach currently, we believe, meets the new standard.
Absolutely.
Is that still the case?
100%.
And that was accurately stated before, and it's still accurate today?
Yes.
That the lessons that were taught last year are the same exact identical lessons that will be taught this year? So, thank you.
You're welcome. Kelly.
I have a follow-up. Sorry. So the lessons will be the same.
Go ahead.
I didn't hear you, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, just to piggyback off what Jason said, I just wanted to see, I think the biggest concern, although nothing is changing, it feels like it's a lot. Is there any way we can, confirm to parents that there isn't, give them resources or anything to show them that that will not be used is 100% not going to happen, that there's no way that can be brought to the classroom. I feel like all they want is just a direct answer. No, although it says it here, they need some type of like, definitive resource to state to reflect on that will say no.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I'm here tonight, to make sure that you guys all are aware of this and you're comfortable with this, because you're the elected officials that are speaking for everybody that's in the audience. And I've always encouraged parents to call me, to talk to me about the standards, and to talk to the principals and the instructional supervisor in regards to any curriculum or any standards. But all of the parents that I have talked to on the phone, we've had really great conversations, and I've reinforced with them on the phone what I've just reinforced with you. I feel like we put things out, but I don't know that it's perceived well when it's in writing. Like, I feel like you have to hear it. So you can be the voice here and ask these questions, and then if anybody has comments during the open comment, that we can get back to them or write down what their needs are. So thank you.
I think I was just echoing what Jason and Diane were saying about what you're saying. Everything's the same. I think what a lot of people have questions is, will the materials be any objections? Is that something that
We didn't purchase any new materials. There's no new resources, there's no new materials.
So the things that we see, news reports about, video clips that are available that other districts may or may not be using, we're not going to be using.
We're not.
Well, if I could tell you, that's a great point. I think there is some miscommunication out there on social media in regards to the New Jersey Department of Education's role. Okay, so they set the standards, but they don't review, they don't approve, they don't choose instructional material for the local education associations and schools. We do that. And, like you said from day one, we believe, as soon as these standards come out, we believe the instruction that we have already provided, already covered, so you will see no change in instruction.
I think that was the big concern that people had about the materials that are going to be shown to the students.
Right. And I think there was some things out there that were saying the department head are making you use this, the department head making you use that, and that's
They were recommended, they were like sample lessons. There were sample lessons the Department of Ed put out.
well, I can't speak to that, but
Website.
I can tell you that that's not the case.
Yeah.
Another question regarding the curriculum in general. Once the board approves the curriculum, the board has the authority to revise or rescind that approval at any given time, correct?
Well, they're approved every year.
Well, again, if we're told one thing and in reality something is different than the way we understand it, we have the authority as a board to rescind that approval or revise that curriculum, correct?
I'm looking at you, Jeff.
There's always the ability to reconsider a vote, but it's got to be, there's a procedure for doing that. So you would have to, someone who voted for it would then have to make a motion for reconsideration.
Okay.
So there's a process to do that.
But it can be done.
It can be done, yes.
Essentially, in other words, if we were to vote on something tonight and the result of that is something different than what we understood 6 months from now, we have the authority to, there's a process in place that we could revise that.
Yeah, and there's also other motions you can
Make specific.
in the event you need it.
Right. Are there any other board member questions?
I have a question. In regards to just like the flexibility of these curriculums, I feel like sometimes with dual income families, it's hard to stay in touch with like the teachers and what's going on exactly in the classroom on day to day. What's the flexibility that the teachers have to decide that they want to go above and beyond and add a little bit of extra if it's sexual health or go above and beyond if they decide they want to do
I don't
something
think
else?
they're going to decide that. We've had a lot of conversations. They're not comfortable either
Right.
with the wording that was put into the standards. So there's been a lot of conversation between myself, the phys ed and health teachers, as well as our instructional supervisor, as well as with Delcy. So it's not a secret that their instruction is not changing. And looking at their family life units, that unit is not changing. If there was any changes that were going to be made, they have to come to the instructional supervisor and myself for the health and PE to have those conversations.
Okay, but then would that ever reach us? Or, and how would that?
It could be adjusted, so like we've changed resources or we've added supplemental resources for other content areas, but given the nature of this particular content area, that would be a bigger discussion than what it historically has been. Like, I've never put something together like this for you guys for curriculum. I've never put a statement in the guidance documents before, but I want to make sure that the community is heard, the board is heard, this has been a topic of conversation, and this is what it should be. When we supplement in the other content areas, when we have our debrief sessions for units, and we have some teachers here too that will probably shake their heads, is what standards did you feel that you need to supplement for and why? Why did you supplement that, or why do you feel you need to supplement that standard? Is it because you just like to do this? Was there not enough of this standard and the resource that we have? What was the reasoning behind it and why?
Okay, but that supplement, if it were pertaining to one of these specific topics, would that ever reach us, or would that be relayed to the parents?
Yeah, it would reach, I mean, if we decided that it was something that we wanted to go to, much like if we were adopting a program, that always comes to the board for approval. Every year the curriculum comes to you for approval. So when we update supplemental resources or anything like that, you would see it in those curriculum updates.
Okay, I guess just one of my fears is that we kind of vote on this and then later on, like what Jason said, that we have the opportunity to rescind. And I just wanted to understand that, how would we be able to identify that or see that? But it sounds as though that, if that were to occur, it goes to you, and then if it were to be a serious matter, that it would come to us, and that you would notify the parents as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, in order to keep the curriculum and be completely in line, we need to hand or have in the curriculum the performance expectations.
Correct.
So that is what will be presented to teachers teaching the curriculum, with the then core idea that they are in turn supposed to perform it. However, we have to handle the paper that has the stuff that.
Right.
So that it's not like it's going to be on there, but hey, don't teach that. Stick over on the left side.
The people that are teaching it are the people that wrote the curriculum. So we've been in close communication all summer, well, actually all school year last year for 3rd through 6th grade, because they started theirs during the school year, and with Mr. Pizzo here all through the summer for K-1 and 2.
If there's other comments, I'd just like to ask the board, Michelle Cunningham isn't with us this evening. However, she did write a letter and requested that I read it, given the fact that this was an ongoing conversation that we've been working on for quite some time. Is there any board members that object to me reading the letter from Mrs. Cunningham? And I obviously want to point out that this letter was written without the benefit of being here this evening and hearing the presentation. So I'll go ahead and read it real quick. It says, after reviewing the family life curriculum submitted for 2022-23 school year, I'm concerned with some of the contents. The 2nd grade wellness curriculum that states lists medically accurate names for body parts, including the genitals. In the 5th grade revised family curriculum, the terms sexual feelings and masturbation are listed. In the 6th grade revised family led curriculum, differentiating between gender identity, gender expression, and sexual orientation are included. I reached out for clarification to administration in regards to the above mentioned, but believe these terms should not be in our curriculum. I understand that the guide states instructional focus, quote, instructional focus when based upon the core idea and not the performance expectations. In order to be compliant with the state curricular guidelines, standards are present within the curriculum documents. However, if the guides are approved as is, I feel the board is approving the entire curriculum, including these concepts and their coverage in our classroom instruction. As a parent and a Board of Education member, I would ask that these items be removed. And again, this letter was written prior to the revision, so I think most, if not all, of the concerns raised have been addressed and were removed from the curriculum. So,
The specific vocabulary words, yes.
okay. Finish this respectfully, Michelle Cunningham. So if there's no other questions from board members, we'll go ahead and open to the public. See a lot of seats out there that are filled, so I'm sure there's.
I actually have one question. Amaze.org, that's not going to be shown at all.
Amaze.org?
Yeah.
I haven't even seen that, and it has not come to my attention. So that is not in the documents now. Would you want me to leave this up in case anybody or?
Sure, you can leave it up. Mr. Walton.
Just real quick, I do want to give Jamie a pat on the back. He did an excellent job of giving a lot of information.
We're going to go ahead and move into our first public comment portion. Before we do, I just want to mention that I do believe that we're all on the same page here, whether it be teachers, parents, board members. I don't really think there's much light between us on how we feel about these standards and how these standards are going to be taught. So with that said, I'll go ahead and I'll make a motion to open the public. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Just real quick, I'll read our basic public comment rules. Members of the public are encouraged to speak during the public portion of the meeting in accordance with Board Policy 0167. Matters shall only be brought to the board after all avenues within a chain of command have been exhausted. Please remember that the board is limited in its ability to respond to the public on the following matters: personnel, anticipated or pending litigation, negotiations, attorney-client privilege, unwarranted invasions of individual privacy, tactics and techniques in protecting the safety and property of the public. When addressing the Board of Education, please respect the following procedures. Direct all comments to the board president, not individual members. State your full name and address before commenting. Our policy does limit public comment per individual to 3 minutes. However, we've never had to enforce that rule, so I'll just ask you to be courteous to the other members of the public that are here this evening and try to limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. So with that, is there anyone who wishes to comment on any agenda items this evening? Please step up. Do we have a microphone or we just... Mrs. Halpern, you feel comfortable just speaking or would you like a microphone?
I think I can speak loud enough. You can let me know if I'm not loud enough.
We can hear you. I don't know if the audience can hear you. But...
Okay. I wanted to talk about 3 environmental issues that you're dealing with. One is the gas tanks that are going to be replaced. It's on the agenda. And I wanted to discuss with you the cost effectiveness of replacing these storage tanks and the possibility of an expensive cleanup if the current tanks are leaking. Are they leaking?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. How old are they?
I don't have an answer to that question.
Okay. And why should we put in fossil fuel infrastructure when we need to use incentives to get electric buses, which are healthier for our students? How much do we save per gallon of gas by having the tanks? And how many years of that savings will it take to break even if no added costs of cleanup?
Are you expecting me to respond to those questions?
Well, I would expect that the board would at least research those types of issues when it comes to an expenditure so high.
Yeah, that particular we can't discuss contracts in public, but that contract will be a topic of discussion this evening in our executive session. So.
Okay, well, I mean, I'm not really asking you to discuss the contract. I'm asking you whether there's been a cost analysis done as to whether this really is something that we should be spending money on, or whether getting gas elsewhere in the interim period when we're all supposed to be switching away from fossil fuels would be more of an economic boom than putting so much money into more infrastructure for fossil fuels. What do we pay per gallon? Is it that much cheaper than going to the gas station? Does anyone know these things?
I don't have it readily available.
Okay, so my suggestion is that more research needs to be done before we move forward, but that's up to you, you're the board. Okay, the other thing I wanted to talk about was the survey of the Lake Road School. Do we have any other quotes to compare?
Not as of right now, then. Again,
Okay.
it's contract.
And why would we not get them?
I don't believe we're not getting them. So.
Okay, that's great, thank you, Jason. Okay, on to my last subject, the septic systems at all the schools. I hate to say this, but when I was working for the county, you know me, I'm a septic lady. That's my area of expertise. That's what I did for 25 years at the county. Okay, the county, when I worked in the county, I was dismayed that when building Danvers School, the school board made a lot of mistakes by hiring the wrong engineer and having the worst system designed, the sand filter. It should be given to engineers that specialize in the state system program, in the GIFTES program, and designed so it can be easily repaired with replacement of the treatment components. And the bed may not need to be replaced with better treatment components. The sand filter was a terrible idea 25 years ago, or whatever. It's a terrible idea now. I would assume at the beginning.
Make 3 minutes up. 3 minutes up.
Let me just finish a few things because my input is educated and I think the group needs to hear it.
The board, the time limit is 3 minutes. There are other folks I'm sure want to speak.
Does the bed need to be replaced or do we just need better treatment? And the other schools, what do they have? How old are they? Are they all failing? How much is our cost of pumping at the school? What is included in the 57K that is being discussed?
These are all discussions that are ongoing as part of our initial review.
Okay, so you're not going to make a decision tonight, is what you're telling me?
Not likely, no.
Okay, because I think the operators of the system would have insight as to where they're failing and whether we're meeting our NIFTY sampling requirements, what the problem is, are we being fined by DEP, is the DEP mandating the repairs or the replacements. Maybe Jason and I could have a discussion at a different date since he's on the Environmental Commission and I go to their meetings. If it's not inappropriate to discuss it in general.
If you have questions for administration, you can always ask administration. A lot of the questions you're asking this evening are questions that can be directed to administration.
Okay.
Much more easily answered.
And who is the administration?
You can send them to Mr. Walton or Mrs. Birmingham.
Okay, if you could provide those contact information, you have my email address, Jason?
Yeah, sure, we'll do it.
That would be wonderful. Thank you. Thank you.
By the way, there's an environmental committee meeting at 7:30 to 8:30, whatever that was.
I can get home in time. Thanks.
Anyone else wish to make a comment this evening? Please step up.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Lisa Heaton, 166 Colonel Avenue.
Hi, Lisa. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Thank you for the presentation on health and PE. Just speaking as a parent, obviously I've had a lot of angst over what was going to be presented to my child. You know, I have an incoming kindergartner in 2nd grade. I think it would help me as a parent to have access to the resources readily available, to not have to just, call or make a personal meeting. I'd like them available on the website. That chart was very nice. I think it would be nice if they could link the resources, any video that's going to be used, any worksheet that's going to be used. I know in a similar role I have that access to my parents, so that I think it just helps, at least for me, to be assured, right, in a time when everything seems like it's hidden or we're not getting the full story. And I don't mean that from the school district. I mean that in light of the current times that we're living in. It seems like everything, you have to dig for information. So I think having readily available those resources that will be presented to my child has certainly helped me feel at ease.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lacey Diverson Brown. I live at 2842 Colesville Road. So we did mention that there was no changes, but then I guess I'm confused on the presentation.
There's no change in the instruction.
But there's change to curriculum, like what are being taught.
There's wording changes in the curriculum. Yeah.
So like, what was, we talked about core. What's our core bet? Like what are we, what's the definition? What's our core in the?
I can't answer. I don't want to incorrectly answer your question. I mean, this is a public comment. It's not really a question and answer session.
Well, we do have questions as parents because we've seen a presentation when we were very adamantly told that no changes were being done. Yet we do see some changes. So that's where I guess the things are being I just want to clear things up.
Well, yeah, I'll clear it up for you. So just quickly, the core idea that Jamie provided is really an overall general, and that's what we're saying. In regards to the change that you see, that's in order for us to be compliant with the Department of Education. So when they come in and do a review, a QSAC review, we have all these indicators. We need to make sure that our curriculum has been aligned with the state standards. But what we're telling is the instruction is not going to change. So in reality, what the board's voting on tonight is really a compliance item, not an instruction item. So we
So
want to
you're
make sure
voting
that
just to comply. So like they can vote not to comply.
they can vote not to comply, but ultimately, if we go down the QSAC review, which is that's what the county review is called, and we fall below 80%, because we are not a high-performing school district, we're going to be put on a corrective action plan. And the only corrective action to this is to align the standards with the curriculum and standards. So eventually, we're going to have to do this. But I do want to point out that this district has been high-performing, over 80% in QSAC review for my entire 10 years as the superintendent here. It's something that I'm very proud of, and I'm sure the community is very proud of as well. So again, there's going to have to be that little bit of trust that we're not going to change the instruction.
Troy, I understand, Mr. Wong, that you have a good track record and you're very worried about certain things being done a certain way. But I thought we were all here tonight to make a vote whether we want changes or not. And it's clear that a lot of parents don't like some of the changes. Like, what was wrong with the way it was done before? Why are we're focusing on all the wrong things. If you looked at, we just came back from COVID, right? All these kids were doing so poorly and they still are behind. Let's focus more on academics and not focus on gender roles. Let's not focus on so much of what we want to identify. And we are accepting. And I think that people are being judged because we're concerned about it's not a side, it's not a political thing. I just want my child to focus more on academics, not boy and girl, or girl, boy, whatever it is. I don't want my daughter to focus on boys until she's older. Let's not make that normal in school. Like, let's just keep it the way it is. I don't think we should be talking about body parts in English class. You know, I feel like the way it was done before, like maybe like fifth and up, what we learned when we were little, I don't know why we have to make these type of changes, so.
What you're concerned about is instruction of what your children are taught.
The core of
Well, no, you don't, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like it doesn't really matter what it says. You care about what your child is taught, right?
Of course.
Regardless of what that document says, you want something that your child's going to be taught, and that's what's not changing. Our instruction, we're not changing our instruction. Regardless of what that document says, what we're being told, what we're telling you, and I have faith and trust in our administration and our teaching staff that nothing is going to change in the instruction, irregardless of what that document may or may not say. We're getting to the same point, using the same instruction, and telling the state that we're compliant. There's no benefit to us.
So we're just telling them that we're compliant, but we're not doing what they want us to do?
No. There's two different things between the compliance and the instruction. They set the standards. We figure out how we're going to say how they're taught. And that's what your concern should be, is how they're taught. And the way they're being taught is not changing according to the information that I'm being told.
Okay. Well, I think my 3 minutes is up, so I'll have a seat.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening.
Good evening, Thomas Brown, 1934 West Boulevard. How you doing, Coach Wall? So basically, I kind of pick up what you're putting down as far as what the state's pushing down and what you guys will be teaching. But I'm just wondering, what's the accountability look like? You know, what if you have a teacher who has strong feelings about using certain words, certain things that the state's pushing down that we may not be teaching? So.
Again, we addressed that during the previous session, that there's a certain level of trust that we're putting in our administration and our teaching staff. So is there something in writing that says they're not? Absolutely no. But we're going to monitor that, and we have to have faith in our establishment here that they're going to do the right thing.
So it's trust, really.
It is, and I think Jamie hit it on the head. The PE teachers, the nurses, they feel all uncomfortable too, and they didn't realize what a hot button topic this is. So, do I think we have people that really want to have to vote? Absolutely not. But I'm sure you guys will tell me if the vote gets right.
So it'll be like typical normal sit-ins.
Observations, sure.
Right.
Yep, and principal jobs.
And then if anybody hears anything.
Of course.
Right.
Absolutely. I'm sure I'll hear it.
It's interesting. This is just a comment. You see some of the scoring and percentages are down in certain categories, and they're going up. And thank you for putting those numbers together, and thank you for your hard work as well. It's just kind of interesting that we're adding curriculum when we're trying to boost numbers up. But I digress. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Anyone else? Mrs. Nancy Kennedy, something St. George Street.
Yeah. Good evening, Nancy Kennedy, 711 St. George Street. So I came out tonight because I saw something on Facebook, and whoever posted it, I want to say thank you. Because like most of the people who are here, I think protecting the innocence of our children is very, very, very important. And after hearing all of you, and it's a little hard for in the back of the room, but after hearing all the board members who asked questions, I was convinced of one thing. And that's that protecting the innocence of our children is also very, very, very important to all of you. And hearing from Ms. Dolden and hearing from Mr. Walton that the teachers who are the best are going to continue, no matter what fancy rhetoric the state tries to slap us around with, that our teachers are going to continue to ensure that the innocence of our children is protected is very, very important and very, very appreciated. So please, continue to do what you're doing. Make sure that the curriculum doesn't change. And thank you for taking the time. And of course, thank you to the teachers who are the ones in the field making sure that this stuff that we're all seeing out there doesn't get through to Franklin Township. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Kennedy. Anyone else would like to be heard this evening?
Teresa 6, 1116 Marshall Mill Road. So the 5th and 6th grade, the sexual intercourse and the pregnancy, the range that it can occur. So we have an opt-in and an opt-out, but the presentation said that ELA was going to also talk on this.
I don't believe that was directed at the 5th and 6th family.
All of the standards are only taught in family life, in 4th, 5th, and 6th.
4th, 5th, and 6th, they're specific to family life. So if it's something
So
that you
none of this
find
is
objectionable, you can
going
opt out from, no, not in 4th, 5th, or 6th.
Okay, and then like K through 12, it says in there the genitals. Is there any way that we can take that out? Because some teachers might feel comfortable talking about it, but
I think
to just ensure the parents.
that's been removed, I think, hasn't it?
I can't take that word out because it's not in a parenthesis, but we are not teaching.
Okay, it's not being taught.
Okay, and we're like 100% sure?
Well, in family life. Well, family life in 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, but in K1 and 2, that word is in K1 and 2.
Right.
It is not being taught.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Stagliano.
Thank you, Ms. Grant. I just want to say to you, first of all, this board, okay, you guys continue to do its best for the students in making decisions that are going to help the students. To all the parents in the room, many of you know me, some of you may have sat in my classroom. I'm going to speak as the veteran teacher in the district now. Right, Mr. Walton, you're stuck with me.
What's that?
I'm a veteran teacher.
You are. You hit the top of the seniority list.
I just want to assure you that I talk with the teachers that are here. I've talked with a lot of teachers in the district for a lot of years. One of the things that why I've loved being here for as many years as I have, and I continue to stay, is because this district has firm values. That's not going to change. The teachers are not, none of us are comfortable with this, right? We are not going to change our instruction. So I just want to assure Mr. Brandt, on behalf of myself, some of the other teachers here, to the parents, we are not changing what we're doing. We're here because we're concerned about your children. This board has we've had our differences in some areas, but this board has always done what's best for our children, and not just this board, but boards that have been here as long as for the 32 years that I've been in this district. So I think you guys should feel safe that your children are safe with us.
Irene Claypack, 6th grade teacher of social studies. I actually did the social studies curriculum over the summer, and it does, the new standards in health are embedded in some of the social studies standards. But there's a way sort of to get around it. Okay, one is gender role. Well, we've been teaching that in social studies 6th grade for a long time. For example, Deborah Sampson. She dressed up like a male to fight in the Revolutionary War. That's how we address it, but we've always addressed it that way. So I think as teachers, we're going to take what we're already doing and keep doing it that way, but it will address what was up there for our standards for health.
Thank you, Mr. Clayback. Anyone else? Seeing no one, I make a motion to close the first public portion. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We do have an executive session this evening. Unfortunately, we can't move to the end of our meeting because some of our agenda items are going to be discussed. We think the president time, 5 minutes. Could be somewhat lengthy, so you're more than welcome to stay. If you don't stay, I want to thank everyone for coming out this evening. With that, I make a motion we go into executive for the purposes of negotiations, personnel, contract litigation, or negotiations. That's second. All in favor? I make a motion we come out of executive at 8:32. Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Abstentions? School board president report. I don't have anything to report specifically. League's not back yet, but NJSBA representative report. The World Championship and anything. So moving on to the minutes. We have the minutes of July the 18th, 2022. If everybody's had an opportunity to review them. Are there any changes or comments? If not, I make a motion to approve the minutes as listed. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions? None. Human resources, Alicia, you want to do the policy?
Yeah, so we met as a policy committee last week. I'll start with our alerts. There were 2 alerts. One was regarding the quorum policy, which basically there was an addition to that saying that I don't know if you guys are familiar with the doctrine of necessity, but if you're unfamiliar with that, basically if there is a quorum at a meeting, but some of the people can't vote for their conflict of interest, you can use what's called the doctrine of necessity to still have a vote. So that policy addresses how you can use that and stipulations with that. The second policy was the website accessibility policy, basically making our township website accessible to everyone with disabilities. This has kind of always been around, but there was a clause in there that schools could be exempt for a certain reason. That clause is now taken out and it's mandatory. So our website has to be accessible to everybody. And then we worked on our board goals, which was discussed at our last meeting, and we amended the policy. What we did was we looked back at current policies and we just added what we wanted to certain policies. I'm going to quickly just look at my notes. All right, so you remember our first goal was regarding like training, assigning a mentor to new board members. So we added that to our current policy, board member orientation policy. We just changed the name and made it board member training and membership. And then we, added the criteria, 2 years experience, et cetera. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you in front of you, but exactly what we talked about at our last meeting. The second goal was regarding kind of operating procedures. So we added this to another current policy titled Conduct of Board Meeting Policy. So basically we added a section that said that any of the topics discussed will be opened and closed by the president. Again, summarizing what the action steps are and who's responsible for those action steps. We also talked about follow-up under the old business section of our agenda. That's in there. And then we actually added something in there about receiving materials on a certain time. We had talked to Troy about we don't get materials ahead of time. So this in there said, we actually added, the agenda will be delivered electronically to each board member no later than 2 days before the regular monthly meeting and shall include all appropriate and available supplementary materials. So that's also in there. Our final goal was regarding liaisons. We also added this to a current policy. We changed the name of the policy, board committees / liaison. It was formerly just board committees. We added some information regarding, what a liaison would do, their role. And you can read that in our put some photos about that. So if anyone has any questions, we worked really hard, but we got it done. So, Jonathan, did I miss anything?
No, but just to add for the board member, board conduct of board meeting policy, we did have like a great discussion about potentially bringing somebody in just to review Robert's rules and kind of like go over Robert's rules, just for our benefits, for clarification of kind of like open, close, table, and close policies more appropriately for our recording process too with the meeting minutes. So we are in the works of.
Well, that is all done in your
Governance classes?
It
your
is.
governance 1, 2, and 3. That is all very, very well detailed. You've done that.
Yeah, so they are going to have somebody come in and
Reiterate it.
reiterate.
Like a Terry Rose type, she's done that before for us, I believe. Hasn't she?
Yeah.
No?
She did send something that they didn't have anything just ready to certainly you guys can do trails on that.
Good. All right, something we can do. One question I had on the school liaisons, I know we talked about the appointment. It's not in this policy who appoints the liaisons. I think that should be addressed to avoid any conflict.
We did talk about that. I thought you said the president.
Yeah, that's not in my notes. So I don't know what happened with that. We'll have to circle back, I guess.
I think it was supposed to be, if you read the entire policy, there's the first policy, paragraph A, says the minister shall appoint standing committees for the authority and duties. I think it was supposed to be sectioned in a way which is not.
That's covered wrong. I got you. Okay, that was another comment. And if we get this in place, we can do it ahead of January, right?
Yeah.
You want to do it at the January reorg meeting.
Well, I'm saying if we want to do it for this year, we can go ahead.
Right.
Yeah.
But I did bring up the point, I don't want to steal the thunder of our student representatives too. I love having them.
I know.
Talking about it. I want to make sure that because there is going to be a little report out from the board member, but certainly, I love hearing from kids.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of bounce back and forth with the main group and Redders, whatever, yeah. We can, that liaison, skip that one. Okay. Anything else for human resources? Make a motion to approve human resource items G1 through G14 as recommended by the superintendent. Any comments or questions? Do I have a second?
Second.
Treasurer, call roll.
Fregoso?
Yes.
Keen?
Yes.
Trace?
Yes.
Fellows? Caselli?
Yes.
Doherty?
Yes.
Doyle? Graham?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Education.
All right, so education, H1 is empty, H2, we just have a couple of student council fundraisers there during the course of the year, Mr. Peters. H3, just a couple of out of district workshops, myself and the secretarial support group in my office, to stress estimate some workshops. The in-district training, this is a year-long training that we use in Title I funds for, that's listed for approval. And then 5, we do have page 7 towards what we do some administrative term support with. 6 and 7 were discussed in detail earlier with James' presentation.
Regarding these fundraisers, the Chick-fil-A one, is that like similar to the McDonald's one, where Mr. Peters goes in the back and cooks burgers?
No, it's only half the day, they'll order Chick-fil-A sandwiches.
How come we don't do you still do the McDonald's one?
Yeah, I'm trying to. I tried setting it up last year.
With COVID, maybe it was goofy with this year.
Yeah, so I'm actively trying to get it again.
Okay, great.
So Mark's account.
I'll be happy to speak. I'll liaison with that. All right, any questions on education bids? If not, I make a motion to approve education items H1 through H7 as recommended by the superintendent. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any final questions or comments? Hearing none, call roll, please, Tricia.
Doherty?
Here, yes.
Doyle? Doyle? Barroso?
No to 7.
I'm sorry, say that.
No to 7, yes,
Barroso?
Yes.
Keen?
Yes, can I make a comment for the record for page 7? That my yes vote comes with the understanding as it's been presented to me and through the reviewing of the materials which has been provided by the administration, that there is no teaching of masturbation or over-sexualization of our students in elementary school. And as a board member, it has been encouraged and instructed to us that we have the capabilities to rescind this vote in the event that this curriculum is to change.
Noted.
Thank you.
I'd like to make the same addendum to my yes vote.
Noted. Tracy?
Yes.
Bellis?
Yes to everything except for 7. 7 is going to be a no.
Caselli?
Yes.
Brand?
Yes. Just,
Motion carries.
thank you. Just a quick side note for all the board members. The way our agenda is set up, it's what's considered a consent agenda. I was under the impression that we were all on the same page with that. If there's anything in the future that you want separated from the bulk group for clarification, just let me know. We got to follow that. Because I could have easily separated number 7 to avoid any confusion. But in the future, if there's anything, just please let me know. General administration.
Yeah, only 2 items. We have I-1 enrollments, and then I-3 are the girls' consumption.
Okay. Any questions? Make a motion, we approve general administration items I-1 through I-6 as recommended by the superintendent. Do I have a second? Any other questions or comments? Please call the roll, Tricia.
Caselli?
Yes.
Doherty?
Yes.
Doyle?
Yes.
Rosso?
Yes.
Keen?
Yes.
Tracy?
Yes.
Bellis?
Yes.
Brand?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Operations, Tricia.
Let's see here. Claims as usual are listed. Anybody have any issues or questions with bill list or payroll? None moving on. Items 2, 3, and 4 are related to the month of June 2022. Monthly transfer report, board secretary report, and treasurer report. Questions? Moving on. The cafeteria report. No district services. Item number 7 are 8 is none. 9, in-district services for behavioral consultants for IEP. Number 10, 2 students to transport. We did do the cost analysis just to be transparent for trying to bring that Yale run in-house, but it's pretty spot on with having our driver do it, plus an aide, plus health benefits, so on and so forth. So we did have to put it out today, only because we don't actually have an available bus driver anyway. So that's the cost. Should we get an extra driver to maybe take that over, it may be worth it to revisit that. Item 11, 12 are none. 13 is use of facilities for recreation committee community day. Dates listed. Item 14, disposal of 2 buses that have reached their 20-year mark. Item 15 is bus routes for the 22-23 school year. Item 16 are the roads, backups, and cul-de-sacs approved and for travel. At some point, it seems that we were in fact traveling on some of the roads. You'll see some of them have travel no, backup no, turnarounds no. So it's, why are we approving them? But that's trying to show the historical track of where we used to travel versus where we don't travel now. Item 17 is bilingual speech evaluation on an as-needed basis. And number 19, NJSBA resolution opposing a proposed increase to the FEHP.
Tricia, I had an inquiry from a board member regarding this.
Sure.
Could you just give a brief explanation as to what this is?
Yeah, so the state health plan is proposed to increase about 15 to 20%. We do not participate in the state health plan, even though we do have to offer equivalent medical plans. But this is just kind of showing support to the rest of the districts and or health benefit programs that are in the state, that the state should not increase that much. NJSBA put together the resolution, so really all they do is just send it out and we adopt it as the board since we're members.
So we don't participate in it, but we're going to vote on a resolution to approve it?
No, to vote on it to show support that we believe as a board that the state health plan should not have those large amount of increases. Given the state had recently implemented Chapter 44, which was supposed to decrease the medical premiums, kind of goes against everything that was implemented for. That was supposed to decrease the cost for the employer and the employee, and this is a very large increase. To give you some account, I believe our health insurance increased this year about 2%-ish. So for a 15% increase among one of the largest health plans, that's a big increase. And that's the minimum. I don't know that they've confirmed yet the full impact of the price increase.
So that we understand it's not going to increase our participation rate.
It's just to show support that the state shouldn't increase that much. Item 20 are the new development lease purchases. They're the first year. Or listed.
Are we going to receive this in a timely manner? No backup?
No, we have received.
Yeah. And that's it.
Anybody have any questions? If not, I make a motion to approve Operations Committee items J1 through J17, excluding 18, 20, removing, let me just do this.
Removing
I make a
18.
motion to approve Operations Committee items J1 through J23, excluding 18, removing 18, is excluding and removing, not taking.
You're excluding, you're removing it from the agenda.
Okay, so we're removing 18, 21, 22, 23. Is that correct, Trey?
Yes.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any other questions? Did I get that motion?
You said you were.
Removing.
Sure.
Not excluding, removing. If there's no other comments, I think call roll, please.
Trace?
Yes.
Bellis?
Yes.
Caselli?
Yes.
Doherty?
Yes.
Doyle?
Yes.
Regosa?
Yes.
Keen?
Yes.
Gray?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Old business, there's nothing listed. Anyone have any old business? New business, we also have nothing listed. Does anyone have new business they'd like to bring forward? Hearing none, we have our second public comment portion. Make a motion, we open the public. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Those abstentions. Anyone from the public wish to comment on any item on the agenda or otherwise? Seeing no one, I make a motion, we close. Do I have a second? All in favor? Leah, when you were had stepped away, you skipped over your NJSBA report. Did you have any report from NJSBA?
Yeah, they're having virtual classes for governors 2, 3, and 4 on September 22nd. If you haven't done them yet, you can attend those. They're also having the director's meeting on the 23rd, and October 18th is the Gloucester County meeting. So if anyone's looking to do like their boards, their certified boardsmanship or anything, you do have to attend those meetings. You have to attend every before.
Also, we have October, end of October is the convention, in-person convention for
I know.
first time in a couple of years. Some of our new board, I think everybody was one of the new board members. They want to attend. It's in Atlantic City. Yeah, there's a couple vendors, sponsored events. They're open to board members, something you might want to consider. Next meeting, scheduled meeting September the 14th. It's a work session, and then we have a regular meeting September the 19th. I guess this will be the last time we meet before school starts. Best of luck to all the kids, obviously all the teachers, on the start of the new year. Any other comments? If not, I make a motion to adjourn 8:52. Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you.